Naoya Inoue, a boxing phenom from the land of the rising sun. Cold, calculated, determined, and persistent are but a few words to describe the young Japanese star. When many of the names on most pound-for-pound lists could be questioned and looked over with doubt, Naoya is unquestionably worthy of being positioned amongst the elite. However, doubters come by way of blissful ignorance, unaware of his accomplishments due to self-imposed limitations based on weight division popularity, which tends to mimic the weight limits themselves, meaning the lower you go, the less people care. In this video, we'll be looking over Naoya Inoue's trajectory in the sport and his rise to stardom. We will dissect his resume and see if he truly is the monster that many of boxing publications around the world presume him to be. He shot right out of the gate with an 8-rounder against Krison Omayao and disposed of him within 4 rounds in his 2012 debut. He continued an upward trajectory and soon began living up to his self-imposed contractual agreement to never take easy fights. He disposed of a Thai journeyman in his second fight and roughed up a highly ranked Japanese boxer in Yuki Sano in his third fight, before finally stepping up in class against whom would later become a world champion himself and Ryoichi Taguchi. After beating him soundly in a decision, he took a slight breather before finally arriving at his first title shot against Adrian Hernandez. In a brutal slugfest against a veteran champion, he was able to masterfully counter the aggressor and put him down with the perfectly timed right hand that made the champion quit in the 6th round. This fulfilled one of Naoya's goals, and he became a world champion in barely his 6th fight. In his 8th fight, Naoya made the decision to bypass the flyweight division and jump right into a championship fight at super flyweight against the once beaten Omar Narvaez. Right from the opening bell, Inoue began mincing up the veteran until his collapse in the 2nd round. This would mark Omar's only 2nd loss in over 40 fights. With this win, Naoya became a 2nd weight division champion in just 8 fights. After several successful defenses, his next name of note came in form of Kohei Kono, an experienced fighter and former world champion in the super flyweight division. Kono was dropped by a Naoya's deadly left hook and finally wilted in the 6th round. Naoya would finally make his United States debut and did so via yet another stoppage and successful title defense in a one-sided match against Antonio Nieves. Naoya would make one more defense of his WBO super flyweight title before moving up to bantamweight to attempt to wreak havoc and collect yet another belt for his collection. The next time he would step into the ring, he would do so as a challenger, attempting to capture the WBA bantamweight title from Jamie McDonnell. He not only beat McDonnell, he obliterated him with a barrage of punches in the very first round, marking his 3rd championship in 3 different weight divisions in just 14 fights. He would then decide to participate in a stacked World Boxing Super Series tournament, facing off against a once beaten Juan Carlos Payano and blasting him out in just 1 short round. This victory would then pit him against a world champion in Emmanuel Rodriguez, stopping the IBF champion in just the 2nd round after having sent him to the canvas on 3 separate occasions. Finally, the tournament finals would come in form of a fierce battle between 2 of boxing's top left hookers. Nonito Donaire would pose Naoya's biggest challenge to date. Donaire would give Naoya 2 battle scars to remember him for the rest of his life, in the way of a fractured orbital bone and a broken nose. The orbital bone fracture came from an early left hook in the 2nd round, and it led Naoya Inoue to have issues with his vision, stating in a relatively recent interview that after a certain point in the fight, he relied heavily on his instinct to throw punches, more so than his doubled vision. In what was deemed as Fight of the Year for 2019, Nonito Donaire and Naoya Inoue waged war upon each other over 12 rounds. Nonito came dangerously close to being stopped in the 5th round, but regained his composure and went on to even punish the Japanese monster over the 2nd half of the fight, including landing a monstrous right hand that really tested Inoue's heart. However, Inoue was able to gather himself and rally an attack that would eventually lead to a knockdown in the 11th round via a brutal body shot. Miraculously, Donaire was able to get back up and beat the count to finish the incredible fight on his feet. Naoya would go on to beat the future Hall of Famer and legendary Pinoy boxer in Nonito Donaire via unanimous decision. Finally, for his 20th fight and his most recent, Naoya Inoue would be making his debut under a new promoter in Top Rank. Although Inoue was meant to face off against a hotshot Filipino world champion in John Riel Casimero, the fight fell through because of the coronavirus outbreak. Fast forward a few months and his new opponent came in way of Jason Moloney, who was stopped in 7 rounds by the Japanese phenom. For Naoya to be considered amongst the top 3 best pound for pound fighters in the world is no easy feat, especially because he fights in a weight class south of 130. Although the casual fans are heavily invested in activities in the more glamorous divisions, amazing talent continues to plague the smaller weights, and a monster calls the bantamweight division his home. It's unfortunate to witness the occasional questioning of his position, when in fact, he has proven his worth more so than nearly everyone else in the pound-for-pound list. With his accomplishments and abilities, one can even make the argument to place him on top of said list, and I could argue his resume toppling over many of the other highly touted names. So now Naoya is at a point in his career where he's wanting to conquer the Western Hemisphere and has arrived at the perfect time, during what is deemed as his prime. Whether a unification fight is next for Inoue or another step into a foreign division, one thing remains true. Naoya Inoue is the beast from the east who will continue to terrorize the smaller weight divisions. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in. This is Shay with King Me Boxing signing out.